Kia ora and welcome to all of you. It's great to see so many of you online with us today. Excited for this conversation and see what has developed in the last year since we held the autumn conversations throughout the country. Today we're going to hear from a few different designers and studios as to how they're using AI as a tool, potentially where they've decided not to use it, and kind of their opinions on it at this stage. So we're going to start with Steve and Gareth from Special Group. And if you want to put any questions that you might have for them into the Q&A, and we'll answer questions relating to each presentation straight after them. So without further ado, I'll let you two take over. So if everyone else, all the other panelists, including myself, will turn off our sound and our video, and we'll let Steve and Gareth share their screen and get into it. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, everyone out there. I'm Steve Hansen. I'm a creative director here at Special Group. Kind of concentrate on the art direction side of things, but yeah, super excited to take you through a couple of case studies where we've involved the tech of AI that's sort of been popping up over the last year or so, and how we've started to integrate it into different clients' work and different jobs that we're doing at the moment. Still feels like really fertile ground, and it's moving and evolving really quickly. So yeah, we'll just give you a little snapshot of where we're at the moment through a couple of case studies.
Yeah, and I'm Gareth, Associate Creative Director here at Special. We're going to turn the camera off because right now we're squeezing
We're dancing between two laptops here.
Cool. I will just get this share. Cool.
Hopefully you can all see that.
Yep, that looks good.
Cool.
So yeah, we framed it a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Is AI a friend or frenemy? I think we've had quite a bit of experience now playing around with it and seeing, I guess, the kind of obvious strengths, but you know, some of the downsides through kind of some of the projects and works we've been doing. We tried to categorize that a little bit into buckets, which you may find either enjoyable or scary.
Or relatable.
Or relatable.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the friend column, you know, it can visualize an idea in about 30 seconds. But unfortunately, if it visualizes an idea in 30 seconds, that's about 60% correct. Yeah. Which, you know, that last 30%, or sorry, 40%, get your maths right, can take a while. But, you know, it does do things super quickly, but there is a lot of niggle to get it, I guess, better.
Yeah, more often than not, you're not getting the correct answer out of the machine straight away. So there's a lot of playing with it, re-rolling with it, tweaking it, and stuff like that. And we're by far not professionals at that yet, or experts, but we feel like we're getting on our way there.
You know, and the friend column creates Hollywood-worthy scenes, but clients don't really have Hollywood budgets. So it can, you know, if we're presenting any work to our clients, sometimes it's maybe a little bit kind of beyond essentially what, you know, we know what they've got available to actually produce these pieces of work. So it's great because it does, it's a great selling because it's like, oh, that looks amazing. And it's like, yes, it's going to be 25% that amazing.
Yeah, so now we're starting to work on a framework of where we do introduce AI into our creative process, and then at which point we actually pull it out and revert back to the real world, if you want to call it that, with imagery. So currently AI, we use it in the very early stages when we're just bringing to life an idea, but pretty quickly after that first client preso, we try to pull it back.
Another thing you can do is obviously create many different styles of characters, be it humans or even like animated style characters. One particular issue, which you may all be aware of, is sometimes their faces seem demonic. It doesn't quite nail eyes, ears, and noses sometimes, and you know, could easily be the cast of some form of horror film. So what we're going to do now is just, take you through two different case studies, applications, I guess, in two different ways, and also timescales.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into our first one.
Cool. Yeah, so the first case study we thought we would share, and it was probably one of the earliest projects where we started to integrate AI just into our creative process and visualizing process. And I'm sure there might be a few contact customers potentially in the audience today, and you may have seen the spot out there that we're going to talk about, but if you haven't, be sure to go check it out and hit our KPIs up on YouTube there. But the whole tagline for Contact is, it's good to be home. And as a company, they're always looking for new ways to advance the quality of home life that we have here in New Zealand. And they do that multiple ways. They do it through excellent products. They've got this product called Good Plans out there, cheap plug, but if you don't know about it, you should probably check it out. They give away free power. But as well as power plans that sort of save you money, they also do a few initiatives for the communities as well. And now through sustainable energy innovation. And that was sort of the story that they wanted us to talk about for this particular brief. So the brief that came from the client was they were after a film that demonstrated that Contact are leading decarbonisation efforts and making it good to be home for the whole of New Zealand. So this sort of gave us an opportunity to stretch the meaning of what good to be home was, and kind of taking it outside of a literal home and speaking to the wider country and what Contact's up to with that. And we've got a few proof points of what they're actually up to. They're not just sort of talking it, but they are walking it. And so as a client, they've been investing hugely into these pretty big generation sites. We've got the Clyde Dam there in the background. But as well as that, you've got like the Wairaki thermal plant, but these almost sustainable, renewable power plants that are using renewable sources to power our homes. And it's sort of a story that they've never told before. But it's also, when you're starting to play in sustainability and doing good and stuff, a message like this can fall into a pretty familiar territory. So from our end, we got to work and wanted to just take it somewhere really interesting and fresh for the client and really push their brand tone a bit. So we got to this answer. What if we created a film about a shared living situation where the whole of New Zealand is the home? But a little bit more than that, what if the flatmates who live in this shared living situation across New Zealand, what if the flatmates who live there were a bunch of native animals, native bush, and a human? And just to sort of give you a little more detail on that, and the story that sort of followed was they had issues in the flat, similar to what any New Zealander has experienced, from not replacing the loo paper to hogging the bathroom, but in this case, even through to humans' excessive use of fossil fuels, which the animals that lived in the shared home sort of brought up to them, which kind of gave us this perfect opportunity to tell Contact's story of decarbonisation and what their journey was. But it's at about this time, as the art director and the one who looks after visualisation, and I'm starting to go, shit, this is quite a unique sort of concept I haven't really seen before. And this is pretty much where my brain was going when trying to think how exactly I might be able to pull together visualization for it. So my Photoshop skills are pretty mid. I can't draw, well, not well. So yeah, my brain's slightly freaking out. How are we going to build this world when it comes to visualizing it for the client? Had to use this meme. I've never used it before, but I felt this was the perfect situation for it. So just over on my right, our usual approach to visualizing up an idea or even into a script, which I'll get into soon, the usual approach is really time consuming. It's basically trawling Google Images, finding whatever you can find. Chances are it's you end up with a whole lot of elements with multiple light sources, highlights everywhere, shadows all over the place. And sometimes you end up with a slightly more confusing visual, which actually makes it hard for the client to digest. And just rewind your brains, maybe about a year ago, just rewinding about a year or so ago, there was a couple of new tools on the street. And I think it was at that point the penny kind of dropped for me, and it was time to try something new, put Google Images and Photoshop to the side, and start to dip my toes into Midjourney. But at the same time, what was going on was Photoshop was starting to get into generative AI as well. So you sort of had this crazy new combo on the creative streets of Midjourney and Photoshop beta, which we utilized to build out the storyboard for this particular script. So the script itself, these tools felt like the perfect fit for it, because basically the process here at Special is after we've written each script, what we do is we visualize every scene or almost every line of that script to help with the sell to the client. Just helps them visualize sort of what's in our heads. The detail in this particular script, it was a 90-second script that we wrote for, so we almost overwrite them. What we wrote seemed impossible to visualize, let alone make it look really amazing. And I'm just going to go through a few sort of frames or setups from the script that we had, just to give you an idea. Any art directors out there, it kind of gets your brain scrambling on shit. How am I going to sort of take care of that one? So just one example from the script was, this isn't your average flat. Rocks jut out from some of the walls. Native birds can be heard in the background. And as Oscar moves down the hall, Oscar was our main character, he has to jump over a creek that's running through the kitchen. Usual in the old approach, this would probably be a few hours work, maybe a couple of hours work. But moving it into Midjourney land, it started to produce some magic and come to the rescue. So this was sort of a visual that it turned out, which sort of reflected that moment in the script for us. And then with a little bit of Photoshop beta, we could add red towels just up there in the doorway. We could add a human, but it felt like you had a lot more control at this point in what you had to visualize. But just jumping to another example of that, a little further down the script, getting to the bathroom, our main man, Oscar, we see him open the door to another hybrid space. It's part bathroom, but part waterfall. He bends down and picks up a bunch of leaves that are blocking the drain. So again, with the old approach, it's a bit of a head scratch moment and a big search on Google Images to see what you could find. But then when bringing Midjourney and beta into it, it starts to create these pretty amazing environments that are really sort of bringing the script to life in ways that you couldn't have imagined before. Even down to like the toilet work in the basin within here, just feeling so set in, and clients not getting distracted by bad photoshopping was a big plus on this one. Jumping into another example, some get more ridiculous than others. We see a penguin who's waddled in wrapped in a towel. He doesn't look happy. Easy peasy for Midjourney. And right down to like the details, the way it was draped over the penguin, it was almost as if this computer was connected to my head in a way. Take you through a couple more examples. So we see a lounge built into a forest. A sea lion lays on the couch playing PlayStation with the headset on. And all the art directors out there know this image doesn't exist. It would make quite an ugly comp. But when we brought it into Midjourney, it gave us some really interesting results. But full transparency, yes, the sea lion has hind legs and almost some dog features. But this was the early days of it, but it was a much more magical solution it was giving us than what we were going to be able to create scavenging off the internet. Just the last sort of script example, we cut to a dining table. It's in another hybrid space. surrounded by tussock land. We see the animals and Oscar having a flat meeting, which when you just picture in your mind is a pretty wild scene. And obviously there's not going to be anything that exists for that. So that would be another pretty mega build with the old approach. But with this new approach of Midjourney and Beta, it all came together pretty nicely. So on this particular one, Midjourney sort of created the whole environment, put a table into the space. And then we use Photoshop Beta to add all the animal and vegetation elements, so the tree and the rock. So we were able to build these pretty amazing scenes that were in our head and on paper, but sometimes with that old approach, it starts to sort of let the cell down with the client. So Midjourney was really starting to work for us quite nicely, down to the point where, you know, we could almost do the whole storyboard that we needed, but even go into more detail. With the time it was saving us, we could go into more detail, and more detail means an easier sell usually with the clients. It's almost safe to say AI was giving me superpowers. It was starting to take me to some pretty crazy places, and possibilities felt a little endless. And more importantly, we'd found a way to make the most time-consuming task for a creative really efficient. So it was a game changer. So with the visualizing the script sort of process, it was utilized by us really well, really worked for us, but we just asked ourselves, where else could we use it in the process as well? Cue our characters. So anybody that has been through the CGI process knows how extensive it is. You've got modeling that you've got to do. You're adding physics to the animals, some fur, let alone the rendering. And the majority of the time when you're on the CGI process, you're just looking at a gray blob the whole time. Whole process taking about 5 months in this case. But where AI was really handy for us, just on the right, is it could just whip up different versions of our characters just so we could test out different features. And for it being able to do it within 30 seconds was a time saver. We could play through different animals that we might want to have there. We could play with different wardrobe. What does a penguin look like wearing a baseball cap? And it sort of really opened that door to let us explore without needing to go through a full CGI process to see what things might look like. Even worked for our sheep, which is on the left there. She took 5 months to build, but her demo that we played with, she only took 30 seconds. So this was really helpful to give us a glimpse into what sort of knitted sweater would look best on a sheep. I think it started as a jacket, but we ended up with the knitted sweater. But thanks to Midjourney, we could get a quick snapshot of what that looks like and kind of keep feeding it to the animation team so they could get going. And it was the same deal with our sea lion as well. Like, it's almost hard to imagine what a sea lion would look like when it's got its hoodie up or with the hoodie on, but AI let us have a play with that. Cool. So I guess for me, it is just a tool. And I know there's always that chat on, it's going to take over, it's going to take our jobs. I don't see that myself. I think we'll be pretty good, but it's just definitely another tool that we have in our top drawer, or sort of on our keyboard actually, that we can utilize and help our process and make it easier and faster. So, you know, for us, it's a visualization tool. It makes what we're doing more accurate, gives us a more accurate look at what the final product might look like. It's a great selling tool. It gives our clients an accurate picture of what they're going to be buying. And when they're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars, it just gives them the confidence that they need to get an idea across the line. As well as that, it could be an idea generating tool. I know we've fed AI a few things in the past, and it sort of produced a different perspective from what was in our head. And they've ended up being a little bit better, so we can sort of use that reference that it offers as well. But I guess the best thing that AI, Midjourney, all of the programs sort of do for me is it gives you time. It's a really strong productivity tool. It gives me time to do the more important things in our job. And for us, that is concepting. You know, we want to spend the majority of our time ideating, coming up with the concepts, and not so much the building up and the visualizing of them. That's kind of the admin work. The fun stuff's in just being able to have the time to think, ideate for our clients. And I guess for me, that's what AI has brought to the table so far. These are just a few gifts from the final spot. I was really keen to play the final spot, but there's dangerous territory online and with lagging broadband speed. So happy to share the link to the spot at the end of this if you're all interested. Cheers.
Cool. The second project we're going to take you through is something we did for Uber Eats. It was a bit of a weird brief. It was basically to find the intersection between high performance athletes and a service that requires no effort whatsoever. Basically, Uber was going to sponsor the Black Ferns and All Blacks, which just seems inherently illogical, but you know, that's what they did. And the way we kind of framed it, or the kind of link we could find, was like when they're off the playing field and not gods of sport, pro athletes are just as human as the rest of us. So technically they Uber like us. They, you know, when living their civilian lives, they're kind of just as shitbag and lazy as all of us, and kind of almost utilizing an athlete that way, which is the opposite of how an athlete is used, seemed like a really fun and kind of like, I guess, a bit of a misdirect and a kind of misuse of an athlete. So yeah, I mean, I think we all pretty commonly have seen how most of the, especially All Blacks and Black Ferns, are represented through advertising. It's just really intense and stoic and kind of, a bit too intense. And then when we think about aesthetics of, we'll call them chill gods, they're quite low energy, often quite aloof. So it's about how could we marry these, I guess, two worlds together, especially when there's no real source material of an All Black being anything but screaming into the darkness or looking strong. So yes, a usual pass process would be find reference imagery, source location imagery, source character imagery, cut all that out in Photoshop, and then combine them all in Photoshop. And that could take between 4 to 8 hours. And more common than not, the result was kind of sad. You may be lucky, but often it would be, yeah, it would be a bit of a, you're compromising somewhere in terms of your kind of final concept product to kind of present to client. The new process now would be you would find, reference imagery as a kind of style you're looking for, and then you jump into a prompt. You're like creating an AI prompt, and then you may tweak that a few times, and then you'll tweak it in Photoshop, and then that whole process now has come down to like 30 minutes. So you could technically spend 4 hours trying different things out and having really pretty amazing, I guess, representations of those ideas. And then you can make a judgment of 4 ideas versus suffering one and going, oh, well, that'll do.
Yeah.
So the prompt we use for this particular idea, I don't know if anyone's familiar with prompts. They may seem a little bit psycho, but a highly detailed cinema still, extreme wide shot of 3 female rappers holding mini bags, wearing sweatshirts and tracksuit pants, posing beside the 1910s Toyota Prius, Uber, driver in front at night. And then you can add a lot of, I guess you'll say, technical notes in terms of what camera and film you want to use and different exposures. But you throw that in, and then this was the output. Pretty good. I mean, that was about, about a 20, maybe 30-second render process. And you know what? They loved it. But the problem was, it wasn't real. And here's a bit of a kind of like analysis of the problem. It's not New Zealand. The setup in real world of a production of this kind of photo could be about an hour. They're not Black Ferns. That is not Rugby New Zealand kits. Those are not Adidas bags. And that is not a Ford. So then it kind of leads you to a problem of having to almost deconstruct the shot and bring it in, drag it into the real world, into a real production process, and actually then rebuilding what that photograph would be based on the real world experience that we're going to be on set. With a shot time of only 7 minutes versus probably the hour that we'd probably like from the preceding shot. So then we start working with the photographer and actually doing what we always have done, is actually going and actually breaking down how we can achieve a shot with actually pretty bad timescales, but essentially still getting these style cues that we're kind of beginning to like, which, you know, we came to with the ability to kind of like rapidly, creatively come up with different scenarios and scenes. But actually now it's kind of given us a head start for the production process too, because I think we have a little bit know what we're aiming for. So it gave us, I guess, a little bit more of a North Star. So with the Black Ferns finished on set, we and then we had a tote bag crisis, because then apparently the editors had tote bags, so we had to run and buy plastic bags. No, we couldn't use plastic bags, so then we had to buy reusable bags for them to be holding for the shot. So we got a whopping 7 minutes and 48 seconds to achieve the shot, which I don't know if anyone's ever had to do a shoot. That's a pretty hectic that time scale. However, we got this, which in all appearances is pretty good result, especially with I think with two entities being Uber as well as Rugby New Zealand, who have a lot of constraints. But based on the original, I guess, AI image, it actually did give us a really good vibe and a North Star to hit. There was no real second guessing about what we were trying to achieve. We kind of knew what it was going to be, and then we could find a way to get there. So yeah, as a kind of a wrap up, it's great for rapid concepting, but in the production process, there is a need to revert to kind of real world realities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess as a short conclusion, friend or frenemy, conclusion. AI is obviously a powerful tool. It's almost like you can perform magic, but like most magic tricks, it loses some of its wonder. You start to think more critically and objectively about what you're trying to achieve, but it can give you a space to look further than you might have before. It gives you a lot more rooms and time to actually start experimenting more broadly, which was taken up in the past by suffering cutting out in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And as a last little treat, here's a prompt for the end.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Steve and Gareth. That was really great to see your process behind a couple of projects and kind of what your thoughts are at the moment. I was just wondering, how much time do you think you've kind of spent like learning this stuff to get up to this point, and have you kind of put that into like client projects in terms of the cost, or is that a studio cost to learn about these tools?
Good question. At the moment, clients are aware that we're using it, and we do at the moment mark when it is an AI image, just so they're aware that this image is quite heightened, and it kind of just creates a little bit of guidelines with us that this is very much still in concept territory as well. As for charging it out, no, we don't. It's just part of our creative process and a way for us to visualize the ideas that are in our head. So for us, it's kind of the creatives have just taken it on as a workflow thing. So we all pay our own sort of subscription to it. Yeah, which sort of works out. I think we have a couple of creatives who sort of borrow each other's ones, but it's very much something that's absorbed into our own workflow. Yeah.
I mean,
are you spending? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's kind of almost like, it seems like a bizarre, I guess, parallel, but it's almost like a sketchbook. It's just the most highly rendered sketchbook you could ever think of. Like, you know, if you kind of think of an idea and you write something in a pad or draw something, it's almost like doing that, but it's like a sketch that's comes to fruition much in the same time a sketch would by pencil. So in that way, it's been how we've been using it, I guess, like you would in that normal process of like an ideation of anything.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Does anyone have any questions that they want to pop into the Q&A or the chat at this point, or are we keen to jump into the next presentation? Okay, cool. Maybe everyone's just a bit like, whoa.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, we had a bit to rip through.
no,
We don't
no,
want
no,
to
no,
go
that's
over our
fine.
time, but
Yeah, no, that's
happy to
all good.
share this deck out at the
Yeah,
end or anything if anyone wanted to check it out again to shout out.
yeah, cool.
Cool.
All right, well, thanks so much. You can turn off your audio and video, and I'd like to invite Ben from Wrestler in Wellington to have a chat about how he's been using AI.
Kia ora, everybody. My name's Ben. I run Wrestler, which is a creative agency and production house based in Wellington. And yeah, we tell like human-centered stories, mainly in the form of film, photography, and sound. And we used to work in virtual and augmented reality as well. So I'm going to talk today more about like kind of like the philosophical like ideas around AI and how I'm approaching it, how Wrestler is using it, and then how I think it's going to continue to evolve. And I'm also going to do something similar to what the guys just did, where I'm going to look at like the light and the dark side of AI, essentially, or like the good or the bad, or however you want to. I don't really like calling it good or bad because I think it's just like it's very nuanced. So, how am I approaching AI? Well, first of all, some history on me. I've always been into storytelling. I started in film and then got into production, that sort of thing. But I've always been really into tech and in the kind of startup world and that sort of thing as well. So I've always been around these like new technologies as they've come up. I started New Zealand's first commercial drone company. I was one of the first companies in New Zealand to get into virtual and augmented reality. And I raised a bunch of money a couple of years ago to be in the Web3 space. All of which were these massive hype cycles where people got super excited and they were like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. And it turned out it didn't change everything. And that with all of these new technologies, it turned out to be an and, not an or. And so that's kind of the big kind of thing that I'm approaching AI with now that I've had these three kind of goes at new technology. I'm finally learning that it's not about replacing anything. It's just about adding it to the suite of tools you've already got. Some observations of the sector as it's emerging. I don't think that you can look at AI in isolation anymore. Like you can't look at it as like, oh, how is AI in creativity? And then like, how is AI in the learning language models? And then how is it evolving in say healthcare? It's gotten to a point where it's like this fully integrated system now, and all of the different inputs that are going into it are all feeding into each other. And so I guess one of the first things that I want to kind of draw people's attention to is that whatever we're putting into these AI systems is creating the system. And so we have to be careful about what we're putting in, because it's just as important as what we're getting out of it, and it's shaping what we're getting out of it. So looking at how I'm approaching the good and the light and the dark of how I'm approaching it. Well, I think the first thing to note is that like those who harness new tech can really win on things like efficiency and capability. What the guys were just talking to then about being able to mock up stuff really quickly, do it to a really high standard, get themselves like ahead of what other studios would be doing if they weren't using it. That's obviously a massive competitive advantage and creates a lot of awesome sort of like capability within the studio. I think there is a danger. This is the dark side of this, is that you can start to put too much energy and focus on these new ways of working when the stuff's going to evolve so quickly. And so if you really invest heaps of time and energy into working out this like new pipeline that's going to take advantage of the latest tech, you might do that, but then in like 6 months time, the tech actually like massively advances and you've spent all your time like developing your pipeline for this certain way of working, but then it's made redundant with this new way of working. And so you really have to be careful not to like overinvest in this new stage technology, because it's going to be continuously evolving. So you have to remain like super agile. I think the second one is that there's an opportunity to really stand out with this new and like flash, you know, technology, and you can make yourself look really amazing. And, you know, like the guys were saying, you can put yourself, your work gets to like this kind of Hollywood standard in an instant. But then you really also start to fall into this category of AI imagery, and you start to enter this realm of like an onslaught of AI looking content, and you start to become part of this like homogenized look and feel. I don't know if you're familiar with Uncanny Valley, but Uncanny Valley is essentially where something's like close to reality, but it's not quite there. And the human brain is so amazing at picking up the nuance of what it is to be human, or, you know, to see nature in reality. And AI hasn't quite cracked that uncanny valley yet, where there's something about it that we can tell, like the pores aren't there, you know, the wrinkles aren't right. There's not the kind of like slight skew in the face. Everything's like a little too perfect and polished. So I think there's a real danger of falling into that, being like caught up in this look. The tech has the capability to change the way that we live and work, which can be amazing, obviously. Like there's so much potential to make things easier for us, to speed things up, to just be a real, a great way of being able to do the things we want to do. But it also has the potential of wiping out huge amounts of our industry, right? Like we could really be like shooting ourselves in the foot here. And there's potential for a lot of people to be made completely redundant. Storyboard artists, you know, concept artists, even like a lot of like strategy work can be done through ChatGPT, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. And the list goes on, and I can see where this is going to go with like grading, with audio mixing, with editing. Like there's going to be a lot of people who become redundant. So we have to think as an industry how much we want to use this, because the more we lean into it, the more we could like detriment ourselves, really. So that's just a few little like thoughts on the industry, or how AI is sort of starting to like seep into the industry. Next is how we're using it at Wrestler. So we are using AI with caution, I would say, but we're not like burying our heads in the sand and being like, no, we're too good for that. I believe in everything in moderation and balance. But there are some real causes for concern. Two of them that stand out is like, who is programming all of this AI? Well, it's mostly white middle-aged tech bros, and like they have a very particular way of looking at the world. And that creates this massive bias in the way that the AI speaks and the AI like perceives the world, because it's being programmed by like this very like particular set of people, which as time goes on and more people feed into it, that will change. But right now it's pretty it's still pretty like controlled. And so we really have to take that into consideration. The next is, where are the like ideas coming from? They're coming from the past. Like AI is tapping into information that is already there, and it's grabbing a whole bunch of stuff and putting it together. And I think there's two ways of looking at creativity. One is that that's what we do as humans. We grow up, we move through the world, we pick up all these bits of data, and we repurpose them to create a new creative idea. I personally am a little bit more hippy dippy, and I believe in this great kind of consciousness that is beyond us, which is full of infinite possibility of creativity. And when we really drop into like creative flow, we're pulling from that consciousness, and it's pulling ideas that have never really set foot on this plane before. And I don't think that AI can do that. I think that it's retrospective, rather than creating from this place of original creative thought. So those are my two kind of like main hesitations of how I dive into this. So the light, one of the light sides of positive sides of Wrestler working in this space is that it's super helpful for concepting work. You just saw two great case studies on that. Visually, you know, you can pump stuff out really quickly. It looks amazing. It's really like exciting to all of a sudden just have this thing that you're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Great lighting, great everything, you know. It can help take your thinking into different directions. I've used ChatGPT to like throw an idea into it and go, how could you replay with this idea? And it'll spit out like some different versions of a concept, which is really interesting to kind of just like have the original idea and then start to just throw it in some different directions. And we've got some people who share our office who are working for some really big Hollywood directors, and they're creating an AI model exactly for this. So scripts can come into it and they can like just spit out different character, like, storylines and different plot points and all this type of stuff, and just create different kind of pathways and options. It's also great for like stress testing stuff. Like I put my pitch decks through ChatGPT and I say, what's some things I might be missing here? What are some like oversights I've haven't thought about? And it will bring in a whole bunch of different like considerations for me, which is really helpful. It's just like having, somebody to throw things against who's just has all the information in the world, which is bonkers. So the dark side of that, though, is that it does, as these guys talked about before, it creates a false impression of what's possible and what it's actually going to look like. And it creates like this stretchability that in the mind and in the kind of like in the early concepting phase, like when sky's the limit, you can just create these amazing concepts and dream these big ideas and, and come up with these amazing proposals that like the AI will help you put together. And so you've got this amazing like thing and the client's like, oh my God. And you're like, yes, this is amazing. But then it's like, from a production standpoint, if you're using real people and you're using real scenes, then all of a sudden you hit this wall of like, actually, how are you going to deliver that? And then I think where things are going is that you're actually going to be able to do a lot of the production in AI, which is amazing, but we're going to have that issue with Uncanny Valley where things are going to look really AI. And so it's going to be this really clunky period to where we can actually like turn the dial down on the quality and rough it up a bit. Like when you're creating, if you've done anything in 3D, one of the ways to make something look like really like amazing is to just chuck a whole bunch of grain and dirt and shit on it to make it feel more real, like when you look around the world, it's a dirty place. And so that's, I think, what we need to get into AI to make things look a bit more realistic, is a bit more dirt. So it's great for summarizing briefs and helping to create reverse briefs, to put together pitches. It can do a lot of the expansion that I think often a client requires. Like I love putting an idea down and putting the high level reasons of why it's great and why I think it'll work. But what I don't like doing is like having to write out these huge decks which like expand on all of this stuff and like take the client through every single step of why it works and blah blah. Like AI can do a lot of that like labor for you that traditionally like a strategist or something like that would have to do, which is really, it's not the thinking part, it's like the menial, just like filling it out part. And ChatGPT is really good at that and can really like, again, you can put in the brief or you can summarize a reverse brief or whatever, and it can really help kind of speed up that process for you. Where am I on this? So I think the problem with this, though, is that, again, we're pulling from this global pool of content, like it lacks localization. It lacks an understanding of the nuance of like New Zealand, Kiwi culture. And it lacks that kind of true creative vision that a real human has. So, you have to really use it sparingly and with that kind of in mind. So another thing, like the editing tools are already amazing in terms of like sound, what you can do in terms of fixing sound and isolating it. There's like already tools around extending takes for your clips. So if you're in an edit and you're like, fuck, I need 5 more seconds of this, you can do that, which is amazing. Sora, which is OpenAI's new like video creation tool, which is coming out. If you haven't seen that, you have to go and look at that because that's mind-boggling. And that's going to wipe out the whole stock footage industry, essentially, because it can create any clip you want. And it also is going to allow you to make the most wild ideas, like that ad that the guys were showing before. You'll be able to make so much of that just in Sora at a fraction of the cost. So I think the only problem in my mind with how this like impacts Ressa is that it's just going to make it way harder for us to compete and have a point of difference. You know, like any person who knows how to write a good prompt and have access to the software is going to be able to create like world-class content, and it's going to look amazing, and it's going to be at the same level that like Hollywood studios can make. So our skills become less important, which brings into for me like thinking about where Wrestler stands now in this AI future, which I'll talk to in a sec. So how do I think AI will continue to evolve? Well, on the good side of things, I think that the technology is going to create a rapid rate. Like Moore's law says that it's going to like double every year. And so we look at that with AI, it's probably more than that. And so we're going to see like rapid expansion of this tech, which can be really cool. But it's also the bad side is going to create a whole bunch of massively epic moral dilemmas. And our systems, like our political systems, aren't designed to handle the speed of development. An issue that came up yesterday is Scarlett Johansson was approached by OpenAI to use her voice as one of the voices of the latest update of ChatGPT. She declined that. It's also creepy because they asked her because of her voice being used in the movie Her, which is like, why would you actively head towards that? But this is also another indicator of the people in charge of the stuff are a little bit socially unaware. And anyway, they went and created a model that sounded exactly like her anyway. She's now done it, like put a lawsuit on them and have taken the voice down. But it just shows that like the moral code of these people is not great. And even though they're saying, oh yeah, we really care about how this is going to have an impact in the world, they just want to fucking get this stuff out as fast as they can, and they're going to cut a lot of corners to do it. And it's two of the people of the ethics committee of OpenAI, senior execs, have stood down in the last few weeks. It's like we're in a dangerous place. I think another like pro is that a lot of creators are going to have these mind-bending tools at their disposal, not even creators, but just anybody. Like I think about my daughter who's 6 years old and she has these amazing stories in her mind, and she's going to be able to write that into a computer. She's going to be able to make these like Hollywood style movies, and it's going to be mind bending, but we're going to be swimming in a world of chaos. Like some is going to be beautiful. Some of it's going to be horrific, and it's going to be like overwhelming to say the least. There's going to be so much of this stuff out there. It's going to be just this orgasm of surrealism. And that's going to be super overwhelming. So I think that leads Wrestler to looking at how we can have an advantage in this, which is Wrestler specializes in human-centered storytelling, which often means like real human stories. And I think this is something that like AI can't replicate, right? And so we're going to lean into that more, and we're going to really look for a way that we can still use AI, but use it just to enhance the work we do around telling authentic, real stories around real people. I would say the hard part about all of this stuff is that I find it personally hard to stay passionate about adding more noise to what is out there. Like, I really want the work that we do to not just be part of this like overwhelming chaos of content, you know? Like I want the work that we do to actually have meaning and have a reason for existing. Otherwise, you are wasting people's time. You're wasting, like, I'm wasting my energy creating it. You're wasting money, resource. That's not what I'm about. And so I would say in summary in all of this, I think that if you really work from a place of values and you're only contributing work that has intention and is well considered, and then you use AI to do that, then great, like all power to you. If you're using AI to have shortcuts, to make a quick buck, just to like do more and yeah, not have that consideration, then I would say shame on you. So just as you know, Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility, which I think is yeah, appropriate now more than ever.
Great, thanks for that, Ben. I think we'll find that the session is going to kind of throw up a lot of discussion, which we won't have time to get into, but we can continue this on the Design Assembly Friends members Slack. So I'll set up a channel over there and invite people to that, which could be ongoing, a place to talk and share about this. What do you think students should be learning though, kind of graduating students?
In terms of the tools.
Yeah, and the tools, you know, what their value will be, because that's probably quite confronting for practitioners that are new entering our industry.
I mean, as I said, they're going to be evolving like monthly, you know, and so there's no one thing that you should be looking at. You should be looking at the tools constantly and just have a really open mind to learning how they're evolving and just trying a lot of stuff. Obviously, like there's going to be some main players like Adobe who are going to be making a whole suite of AI stuff within their tools already. So getting really familiar with that, because they'll continue to evolve and they'll have the same kind of workflow as they evolve. Then there's, you know, obviously OpenAI with things like ChatGPT, Sora coming out. I would practice like learning how to do prompts, you know, using also Midjourney is a really powerful one in terms of image generation, and just really honing the craft of learning how to get really specific around writing those prompts and getting the results that you want. And it'll take a little bit of time, but you'll learn like what language to use and how you want to get the stuff that you want to get.
Okay, here is a question from the audience. How do you think this will change the way intellectual property works?
I mean, I think we're about to enter a fucking schmozzle of chaos when it comes to IP, because again, AI is just pulling from what's already there, you know, and so it's actually breaking IP law constantly, but there's no way to really track it. And so that's another reason why I say be careful what you put into these systems, because essentially you are giving them access to your stuff and they're going to steal it, and it's going to be subtle in the way they steal it, but that's how it works, you know. It just trawls from the internet, and so whatever you've got on the internet, it's essentially it's going to rip that off.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it there and get into the final presentation. But thank you so much for your time and discussion. And yeah, we'll try and keep this going potentially in another forum with the Design Assembly members Slack. Cool, you can turn off your camera and audio now, and I'd like to invite Rod and Patricia.
Awesome. Hello, just wait for our presentation to come up. Sweet. Is this all coming up for everyone?
Yes, I can see that.
Perfect. Awesome. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Patricia, and I'm here today with my colleague Rod. We are from Rush, a digital studio based in Auckland with a mission to design and build tech that better serves humankind. I'm a senior digital product designer with a background in end-to-end design delivery, from kind of UX research and strategy all the way through to UI design. So we come from a bit of a different world. We design kind of like websites and apps for a group of users to fit their needs. At Rush, I've been fortunate to work on some projects in the social impact space for clients such as UNICEF, Child Fund, and Ignite Wellbeing, amongst some others. And I'm especially passionate about design for equity and inclusion, so making sure that the products and the services that we create truly reflect and empower the people that use them. I'll give Rod a couple of seconds to say some words about himself.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Rod, and then pretty much I'll be like working on a few projects in terms of the same about like diversity and inclusion, and also about like trying to build a better future for humankind. So over to you, Patricia.
Awesome. So today we'll be sharing some of our thoughts on AI in digital product design, opening with an apt quote from Stephen Hawking. Success in creating AI would be the biggest event in human history, and it might also be the last unless we learn how to avoid the risks. And this just illustrates that, as some of the presenters have mentioned, that while AI opens up this plethora of exciting possibilities to supercharge the way we do design, we always need to consider how we act as responsible human stewards of emerging tech. And I'll pass over to Rod to talk through some examples.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Patricia.
Getting a bit of an echo.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah, cool. So we're gonna continue. So the idea today is we're gonna bring you like examples you can take home, and actually you can put it straight away into your practice. So we decided to ask actually, ask like an AI tool about like what is the intersection between AI and product design. And after like a few seconds, just going and asking to the AI tool, we got like a title for our presentation. And it's called Revolutionizing Product Design, the Role of AI. And we divided this into like 4 main topics. The first topic is Insight by AI, which one we're gonna tell you in a few minutes. Then data-driven UX. And then Patricia is gonna take some topics about ethical considerations and future thinking. So we're going to start directly with Insights by AI. What do we mean by this? It's pretty much if we have a ChatGPT, like the most popular tool, there is another ones very similar to ChatGPT, like Claude, but then for this exercise, we're going to use just ChatGPT. The idea is after we have been running research and interviewing people, we all know that we ended up with a massive Miro board or with like 300 Post-it, all over the place, very hard to allocate. You might try to just group them and cluster them into groups to just see like if they are like the same insights. And this is becoming quite challenging and time consuming. So I want to show you how we try to streamline this process and organizing the nodes, understanding the trends, what are the pain points and the delighters, and then also what do we do in terms of like documents. And for the first one, I'm gonna show you straight away the prompt we use. It's very similar to this one. And usually we ask ChatGPT to summarize the following notes. When we take notes, we take them, we copy them from Miro and we put them in a spreadsheet. So then we can present more information that makes more sense to ChatGPT. And we will ask them to do like 3 main categories. The first one will be like key insights, pain points, and delighters. And then we will give them like some idea in terms of like how I want the key insights in terms of like bullet points, the pain points and the delighters in terms of like a table, for example. And then below that, we will put like all the notes, we will paste them straight away. Or we might also attach a document. You might get something like this. This is actually was a real project structure. So that is why you see like a lot of blank spaces. It's because actually I'm not going to give you access to the insights, but then I want you to see the structure. Like in the first one is bullet points, and then we get like 2 tables. We do exactly the same process when we talk about documents. And then usually when you work in a project and you're just starting, you might get asked to just build some context. And we know how challenges this could become in terms of like reading one document is fine, but when you need to read like 20 or 30 documents and each one is like 5 pages to 10 pages, you see how this is coming quite tedious. It's just hard to just find that time to just read all those documents. So usually we upload the document and say like, please summarize the attached document, key learnings, next actions. You can take a screenshot if you wanted to just get the prompt for yourself and outline what is the main summary. All the variation we do with like ChatGPT and these tools is actually to just improve our prompts. So for example, here I have the example about a company trying to sell tacos on the internet through delivery, but they are not quite sure if they want to use like a drone to delivering the tacos or a pigeon. So then we try to say like, we have like all these interviews and we have this data, what are like the right prompt we can use from ChatGPT to just summarize these insights. This is like kind of the reverse scenario when we provide the data to ChatGPT and say like, can you please tell me how would be like the best way to prompt this? And you can ask for like 1 example, 3 examples, 5 examples, and trying to find what is like the best way to work for you. You might be wondering, hey, Rod, is everything so interesting, but what about privacy? ChatGPT 4.0 brings something new that is the temporary chat. Actually, it's not that new. It was before placed on ChatGPT, just on the settings. But now it's more like isolated chats you can create. It's more like an incognito mode, and the data you put into this chat is not going to be used for training purposes. So all the data you put here actually is going to be gone after you close it up. And that's so important because actually I've been in situations when I've been like running some scenarios with ChatGPT in the morning. I might close the tab. I want to come back to it. The data is gone, absolutely gone if you close the tab. So that the idea is like, if you can keep the tab open, that will help you to just carry on that one. Now moving forward, we're going to go to data-driven UX. And this is an example about like how we combine Google Analytics and ChatGPT. And for this example, one of like the most common ones is we want to understand user journeys. And we want to understand how people land in a page and what are the actions they perform after they have completed that action. For this case, for example, we're gonna do like a path exploration. That is the last one on the right side. I give you some insights about how people landed on your page, where they were before and where they're moving after. So if you select that one in Google Analytics, they will give you like a view like this one. I can select what is my starting point. If I will be you, I will select page title and a screen name. So I can select something like, for example, like pay my bill. Imagine like I have like a utility company. So I want to understand when the people landing before paying the bill and what I'm doing after. After that results, I might get something like this. Above of the number, they were like actually page titles, but just for like a privacy concern, I cannot put those here directly. But then you might get something like definitely like this one. And then I will export the data on the top right with the icon of download. And then I will take that document directly to ChatGPT and say like, please, I got this user journey. Can you take me about like the insight, the user behaviors, the engagement, and all that data will be exported into the spreadsheet, and I can just put in ChatGPT and get like a better scenario. But now for moving forward, I'm gonna leave you with Patricia.
Switch over of our microphones. Awesome. So while AI brings significant advancements to the tools and methods that we have at our disposal as designers, I think it's just as important to address the ethical challenges that it introduces. So large tech companies like Microsoft, Google, and IBM like to refer to a formalized list of principles when it comes to AI ethics, which looks similar to this. And you can reference this easily online with a quick Google search. And I found that sometimes it can be difficult to translate exactly what this means for us as product designers who have a specific job to do and a choice of ways we can use tech to accomplish it. So if our goal is to use our design superpowers for good and avoid doing harm, then when it comes to using generative AI as part of our process, we can boil this list down to 3 key pillars. So these 3 pillars are avoid creating or reinforcing unfair bias, be accountable to people, and protect privacy and be responsible when handling people's personal data. I'll briefly introduce what each of these kind of look like and how they might show up in our practice as product designers with some examples of how we can address them. So avoid creating or reinforcing unfair bias. This is about addressing the risk of algorithmic bias. And this sounds really jargony, but all it really means is that AI-driven design can inherit some inherent biases based on how they've been trained, potentially leading to unfair or discriminatory outcomes. And it's really crucial for us as designers that we identify and we mitigate these biases so that the designs we create and the products that we deliver for users are fair and they create inclusive and equitable outcomes for the people that use them. So if we skip on to the next slide, I've got some examples here of some discriminatory outcomes that result from AI bias. So on the top left, we've got a couple of images generated by Lensa AI, which is an image generation tool, which clearly shows gender bias. I think the prompt was something like, show me in a space context. And for a woman, it shows a really hypersexualized figure. And for a man, it shows, an astronaut with associations of education and knowledge and prestige. And so, yeah, that's clearly not an equal playing field. And the bottom left, we've got a prompt for an image generation AI to show a color photograph of a housekeeper, which reflects stereotyping bias in the training data. As you can see, the people generated are of a certain demographic, reflecting, again, some pretty stereotyped images of people. And with the graph that you see in the top right, what this is showing is the accuracy of face recognition technologies, where darker skin tone females actually have the lowest accuracy, which shows that the developers who were training this AI clearly had sample exclusion bias, where they weren't testing as much with darker skin tone females. And so they're disadvantaged with the results of the tech. And in the bottom, we've got an example of an AI being used to assign risk scores to criminals and their risk of reoffending. So these two individuals have the same criminal history and have committed the same crime, but the AI has assigned them different risk scores just based on what? Well, race, clearly. So there is racial bias present here. Skip on to the next slide. So kind of to wrap that pillar up, what we can do to avoid creating or reinforcing unfair bias is 3 things to keep in mind. Collecting inclusive data from a diverse range of users to make AI outputs more representative. So gathering customer feedback from different ages, genders, ethnicities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. We can test AI results with different types of users to see that it performs just as well for each of them and check if it favors or disadvantages a particular group. For example, are older adults being served worse or less relevant recommendations than younger adults? And we can also prompt AI to provide clear explanations for its decision-making. So we human designers can identify bias ourselves. So for example, we can cross-check what the AI tells us about people by comparing that with the insights we gather from talking to real people. Which leads us really nicely into our next pillar with using AI ethically, be accountable to people. So at Rush, we talk a lot about human-centered design, and this doesn't change when we use AI. AI can never substitute emotion and empathy, which are really central aspects of human-centered design. Maintaining this human oversight while making use of AI tools is really important for us to make sure that we can set our own ethical standards, fairly represent real people, maintain stakeholder and user trust, and take responsibility for the outcomes of AI-driven designs. So it's saying us human designers should stay in control of the wheel. If we move on to the next slide. So this is just an example of something that happened during a recent project that I was working on. Recently, I was working on a project designing a digital workflow to help organic winemakers complete their admin to apply for organic certification. And I wanted to quickly test an early concept with actual winemakers by getting their feedback on a storyboard that explained how the process would work. To speed things along, I decided to use AI to generate some illustrations to fill in this storyboard. And I entered a prompt to depict a winemaker using a computer program while working in their office. And this is the frame that it gave me. And the actual winemakers that I spoke with were pretty quick to point out that they don't, in fact, sit at their desk downing multiple drinks throughout the workday, as this would suggest. So again, just cross-check what you're getting from AI with real people who they're meant to represent. And our final pillar is when using AI, make sure we protect privacy and are responsible with personal data that we collect from people. So some good practices to follow here are avoid inputting sensitive information such as people's personal data, phone numbers, emails, names, that kind of thing, into public AI where it can be compromised, especially when you're doing research, right? Collecting only the minimum necessary data required for the specific purpose. For example, only gather user preferences rather than full personal details if you're trying to do something where you're personalizing an experience with AI. Thirdly, inform users how AI will use their data and get their permission before you proceed. For example, you can implement a consent form where users explicitly agree to share their preferences, and you can explain how it will be used to generate personal recommendations or whatever you're trying to do. And if we skip to the next slide. So we've kind of talked about how AI can be used ethically and unethically. So I thought I'd share a couple of examples of success stories where AI has been used to great result and delivered really good social impact. This example is an app created by Microsoft. It's a talking camera for the blind that's been trained by AI to recognize everyday objects and describe them for people with low or impaired vision. And if we skip to the next slide. We've got an example here called Project Relate. If you play the video, hopefully the sound will come up. So we just pause it here. So what we see in this tool is it's an app created by Google to help people with non-standard speech help them communicate with everyday people in day to day. And I don't know if the video really played the sound just then, but essentially what it does is helps people who can't produce speech the way the rest of us do and use AI to train. The AI is trained on a really diverse set of samples of people with non-standard speech so that, yeah, it can be rendered as coherent speech for people to understand more readily. And to kind of summarize, what I think both of these examples do really well is they show how the designers and the development teams behind these two products have paid really close attention to the specific needs of some of the most underserved tech users in society, right? And harnessed AI to create dedicated solutions that empower them and dignify them in their day-to-day lives. So if we talk about future trends, where we see AI going in product design specifically, yeah, so technical and rote design tasks we think will eventually become partially or fully automated. Things like managing tokens for design systems could be AI powered in future. We see that human AI interaction will evolve into a design discipline in which practitioners must become well versed. So human AI interaction will actually become its own skill set entirely. And I think, as some of the previous presenters mentioned, yeah, being able to really harness the power of AI by writing effective prompts and knowing when and where and how to use AI is going to become a really in-demand skill set for creative professionals and designers. And designers' ability to define and guide AI augmented processes will determine their future value to clients and organizations, especially as we see AI-powered products and services coming into the market more and more. This is going to become a really competitive skill set for the future market.
Thank you, Patricia. So just to recap today, just a quick summary about what we have seen today. So today we talk about 4 main topics. The first one is insights by AI. We talk about ChatGPT summarizing documents for interviewing, or also for any kind of documents as well, to just trying to summarize those, how ChatGPT also will contribute to just improve your prompts. And also in terms of privacy in the incognito mode. In data-driven UX, we talk about how get insights from Google Analytics data. And then finally, we saw the other 2 pillars, ethical considerations. What are the ethical principles in terms of avoiding reinforcing unfair bias, be accountable to people, and also be responsible about protect other people's data and the data you are using on these tools. In future trends, we talk about technical design, this kind of human AI interaction that is becoming more prominent. And also for designers, what is the defining role in guiding the augmented process in the future? Do you have any questions for us about other ways we use ChatGPT, or how we can extract insight from data, or ethical principles, or how to promote AI in my organization? We will be very happy to answer any of those questions. Namihinui. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rod and Patricia. So many things that everyone's brought up today. Just a more technical one, but apart from using, what AI tools are you using in your daily practice? Or
I'm going to get too close to Patricia, so we can the 2 of us. In terms of tools, we use ChatGPT and Claude. They are 2 tools we're using. There are other generative tools that probably Patricia can mention in terms of mood boards.
Yeah, so for the storyboarding example that I gave, I used a tool called Boards. It's spelled BOORDS, I think. And it's a storyboarding tool that allows you to use AI prompts to generate the frames within a storyboard. And that's pretty cool. Yeah, if you have a look into it, it allows you to do things like negative prompting as well, where you can say what you don't want to have in the images, which can be really useful, especially when you're trying to, really hone in on those details and avoid, yeah, representing winemakers as professional alcoholics.
Great. I think that a few of the questions, I think Steve's put some answers in there for you in the Q&A panel as well. So you can have a look in there. Has anyone got any other questions that they'd like answered right now?
What AIs are you using? Yeah, apart from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I guess Claude is the other one. CLADE. Yeah, and that one is very similar to ChatGPT. It's just like the way they're collecting data is slightly different, but then also Midjourney will be like the other ones. It's like, regardless of the tool you use, still you need to know how to prompt.
Mm.
So I guess it's like prompting is becoming more important. And this is the moment when prompting becoming more important than actually the tool itself.
Yeah. So is that, oh, here we go. I've got Leanne has raised her hand. I think Leanne, if you put it into the Q&A panel, that would be good.
Yeah.
The question, I think, rather than.
What are the issues of copyright and ethics around? Oh, there are like a few questions for the previous panelists, but also...
Yeah, I think so. What we can do as well is I'll ask the panelists to send me the links to the tools that they're using, and we could share that with everyone too. Obviously, this is a huge topic for our community at the moment, you know, as this new tool and as we get to grips with it. One question I had was, we looked at this last year in terms of the bias of AI. And do you think that's gotten better or worse, or kind of remained the same over these 12 months? Rod and Patricia, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think as people talk about it more and more, it's become more of a focus for developers and people who are training AI to provide really diverse data sets. Yeah, so I think I'm optimistic that it will continue to improve, but there are things we can do as designers as well to take that into our own hands. I think there are some AI tools that actually let you provide your own set of training data and training inputs. So yeah, you can make sure that what you provide is representative of a broad range of people and different identities. Yeah,
I don't think still we have seen any improvement in terms of the bias since we started like 2 years ago or a year ago. I think like still like the tools they are learning, we haven't seen those results yet. So we started training this tool probably like 2 years ago. We haven't seen like that actually happening. And I think that has been a concern from everybody. So that is why like, it's so important like us, like the main actor, to actually take action on those kind of like biases.
Cool. Okay, we've got one more question and then we'd probably better wrap it up. Are you using implementation AIs for execution, A/B testing, mass rollout of existing creative, etc., or mostly for ideation? Maybe Ben, do you want to answer that?
Mostly in the like creative and like pre-production stages, and then using humans for all of the QAing type stuff. Like I don't quite trust it yet to like be able to quality control the work. And I feel that's kind of like, if you get to that point, like what are you up to, you know?
Yeah. Great, thanks. What about Gareth? What do you think about that? Are you mostly, it seems like you're mostly using it for the ideation.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't think we'd ever use anything in like any kind of form of like production elements, or even when we get to any finished work and actually getting, you know, consumer points of view. In the end, I think the fact of the inherent copyright issues around what it produces, it feels like it's always going to be the kind of stress testing concepts versus actually implementation. It's just, it's too gray. It's probably going to go through the courts in the States. It's a great way to try styles, different ways of executing, but then moving from there and choosing a provider to then go do the work with, like a partner. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little optimistic. I don't think we'll get to the point where they go machine
facing or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll get there. I'm pretty firm on where I stand. It's very much for ideation sort of purposes. It stays behind the curtain. We would never put anything out public facing which had a AI person. And like to Ben's point, there's that uncanny valley sort of soulless look when you look really closely at them. And no, we're using humans after that ideation process, definitely.
I mean, there's a really good parallel I heard, and it's like, if some AI, like an AI, could write every single Taylor Swift song that was never written, and you love Taylor Swift and you're stoked because you've got so much content, the one thing you would never have is her singing any of it in front of you. And I think there is an element of a humanity to what any kind of form of creative work is. You're not just buying into an aesthetical sound, you're buying into the human being that's performing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That maybe is a little
On the fence.
I think there's a little bit of a follow-up from that in terms of kind of the reproduction of the work that you've already created. So it's implementation, human for creation, but AI for artworking and resizing, those kind of tasks.
Plausibly, I think, again, there would need to be an element of curation at the end to make sure, I mean, a lot of that stuff's done through like interpretation, in terms of a human interpretation of what I'm wanting from a layout. So I think there'll always be that element. But if we're talking about like studio artists, that's hairy. Don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's funny because there's always been these kind of like evolutions of the technology within even prior to AI, and what things have evolved and changed over that process. This is, I guess, another one, a bigger leap, of course. But yeah, I think those are some questions that are left hanging at the moment.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'll just, big thank you to all of you. It's really great to, be sharing this and our learnings with this tool as a community, so that we can, kind of start to make some decisions about the value of creativity and design and move forward together. So yeah, really grateful for your time and efforts before this and today. You can see everyone's hugely interested in it. And, Design Assembly would really like to support everyone in further learning with this. So please let us know, what is it you want to know about next? Do you want a session on AI and IP? Would you like a workshop teaching about how to use the software, Adobe or Midjourney? What is it that you want to do next in this area? Do you want to do it online or in person? Design Assembly is here to connect with the design community and to help you live a good life in design and continue your lifelong learning. So I'll just share my screen and do my little shameless plug for things. Get rid of those. Go away. Right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So here's what's coming up next for everyone. Present. Come on, present. There we go. We obviously did that today. So of course, become a DA friend member. That's what enables Design Assembly to keep going and providing these things for you. And, it is a tough market out there this year. So we are really relying on people to keep their memberships and to grow that membership so that we can stay around to provide these services for you. And we've got a few things coming up in the next kind of month. So we have an in-person workshop in Auckland for freelancers, people who want to start working for themselves in terms of the business of design. We've got a free webinar with Henry coming up in terms of the pros and cons of how you set yourself up as a limited liability company or a solo practitioner. And then we're launching a winter lunchtime learning series, which is a lower cost way of giving you 3 different workshops, 90 minutes each. And we'll be starting with Jason in terms of looking at your strengths as a designer, what makes you unique, and how to work with others that have different strengths. So keep an eye out for that. And as I mentioned before, if you're a DA Friend member, you also get access to the online Slack community, and you can have a lot of chat about lots of different things and even this topic. So if you've if you can afford that, we'd love you to join the Design Assembly friend community and become a member. Awesome. All right, well, we'll leave it there. So yeah, thanks again to all of our presenters. It's been great to hear from all of you. And we'll catch you next time. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.